When you're model building and prototyping an acrylic sheet, you basically have two options for finishing your acrylic other than vinyl. You can polish in color or you can paint it. I'm going to take you step by step through both processes so you can decide which one's best for you.
My name is Eric Strebel. I'm an industrial designer. Welcome to my channel about product design and making. I'm going to take this cube from the Acrylics Basics video, and if you haven't seen the Acrylic Basics or Advanced Basics, make sure you watch those videos to learn about how you build things with acrylic. We're going to sand this cube down flat now that we've flush trimmed it, and we're going to do that with 220 grit sandpaper. Our goal here is to sand every side nice and flat. Let's take the cube and put it in the spray booth. I have a video about how to build your own spray booth, link in the upper right here. Our goal is to prime the entire cube, and this is going to allow us to see all the blemishes and imperfections of the cube. And oh boy, this cube needs a little bit of work. To fix these imperfections, we're going to apply a little bit of glazing spot putty. You can buy this spot putty at your local automotive supply store. There's an Amazon link below as well. You don't have to go too crazy, you're just filling all the gaps and cracks, and this is just our first pass. Now that it's dried, we're going to sand it with 320, and we're going to sand most of the red stuff off. And we're going to prime it again and do it all over many more times until we have no more imperfections. All right, more spot putty. Now that it's dry, we're going to sand it again with 320, and always use a sanding block. All right, prime it one more time. Each time, you should be able to see less and less imperfections.
So at this point, you should have a cube that's looking pretty decent. There shouldn't be too many blemishes left, and this is what we get. Now this cube has two little issues that I've seen so far. I'll point them out to you. Right here, in this front corner, and then this top edge right here is a little bit soft. So we'll add a little bit of spot putty here and here to fill these last two areas. Probably be the last time we apply any red, and then we'll sand that out and prime it.
I like to use a pencil and mark my primer ahead of time so that I know exactly where the red stuff is going to go. It just makes things a whole lot easier, and I just have to concentrate on adding the spot and glazing putty and not worry about where to apply it. Let's sand it again. Let's prime it yet again, as there are still imperfections that need to be fixed. Now that that primer is dried, we're going to sand it with 400 grit sandpaper, as I only plan to use primer from this point out. The last coat of primer will be a nice heavy coat of primer, and we'll let that dry overnight. With that last heavy coat of primer, you'll get some soft edges, and we'll need to sand it one more time. Use some 600 grit wet dry sandpaper to get a nice finish on your primed part. I've been using Duplicolor's primer, and this works great. Link in the description. You want a nice uniform finish so that you can apply your top coat. I'll put down a sheet of paper first so I can pick up the cube if I need to move it anywhere. I want to paint one surface first, let that completely dry, flip it over. Now I can come back and paint the other 5 surfaces. Read the directions on the can and spray the paint the way the directions say to apply it, and you'll get a beautiful finish every time. Just like we did on the previous part, we're going to flush trim all the edges just to make things easier for ourselves. Let's swap out the bit and use a 1/4 inch rounding bit. Now you could do all this by hand, but the router is much, much faster and it'll be much more uniform and you'll get a better result. Next, we're going to use some 320 wet dry sandpaper. And our goal here is to sand all the surfaces nice and smooth and flat and uniform. I don't want my scratches to be too big because ultimately we have to polish this cube back up to a mirror finish. So we're going to start with a 320 and make our lives a little bit easier. You see how there are some shiny spots there? We don't want that. We need to sand a little bit more so we get a nice matte uniform finish on the entire cube.
This gives you a cube that's roughly something like this. So uniformly sanded. You shouldn't see too many, if any, shiny marks there. It should be all dull 320 grit finish, other than the top. We didn't sand the top. We're going to leave those edges nice and sharp.
Next, we're going to transition to 400 grit wet dry sandpaper. We're going to continue to use finer and finer sandpaper as we continue to restore the surface of the acrylic to where we can polish it in the end. Let's begin the polishing process. I have an acrylic polishing pad disc. I'm not sure what you call these things. Link in the description. At any rate, I'll put a little bit of acrylic polish on it, and then I begin to polish out each of the surfaces, including the radius corners, to bring them up to a nice luster and shine. It doesn't take very much to shine it back to a glossy finish once you've sanded to that 3000 grit with the wet dry sandpaper. I'm going to take it one step further. I'm going to use my polishing pad that I use for rubbing out clear coats. This is a foam pad and a little bit of the purple polish. I'll leave a link to that below as well, just to take it to the next level and get that really nice shine and brilliance that I'm looking for from the acrylic. If you have gaps in your acrylic panels like I do, you can use a soft toothbrush with some water to remove the polishing compound from in between those cracks. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Make sure to hit the bell so you get notifications every time I have a new video. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links in the description below and on the channel page. Rock on. Don't forget to check out the t-shirts and hoodies in the merch shelf below. Click here to check out some of the other design and making videos that I have that you might enjoy.